I think I know why you're here. You want to know how to help people who are fighting the battle with their weight. Possibly you, like me, are fighting that battle yourself. But I understand that this is not just about you. You care that over 30 million people in the United Kingdom alone are losing the battle with their weight. Or if they're having some occasional success, it's a constant and major struggle. They're joining gyms and boot camps. They're buying pills, both prescription and over-the-counter. They're attending slimming groups, buying diet foods and diet books. They're pestering doctors. They can even be attempting to get bariatric surgery. What they're not doing, unfortunately, is succeeding. The obesity problem is continuing to get worse. Thus far, none of these solutions have been more than a short-term help. If the experts are right, the current trend will lead to almost the entire population being obese by 2050. And now the medical consequences of this excessive weight plague are threatening to bankrupt the health service. I believe there really is an answer. I believe and will show you that there is a way we can deal with excess weight and help many of the 30 million people who, like you, are seeking answers. During the 40 years of my research career, I've come to understand quite a few of the reasons why controlling weight is so difficult. And as a result, along with outstanding colleagues and a large number of dedicated doctors and pharmacists, have helped hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people lose weight and even maintain much of the weight loss. I realize that I run the risk of sounding like an infomercial or a TV evangelist, but that's only because there really is a way of dealing with this problem, and it's a solution that's been known for decades, even though it's been systematically obscured by volumes of misinformation, half-understood science, and downright prejudice. We only have a short time together today, but I hope I can convince you that with your help, we can really make a difference. I believe that this paper led to the single most important publication in the weight loss field. It documented outstanding weight loss results and detailed the metabolic consequences of a protein-sparing modified fast in obese diabetic patients, and was published by the American Diabetes Association in 1976. While I was getting my doctorate in the nutrition department at MIT, Harvard and MIT are comparable to the Oxford and Cambridge schools here in England. A brilliant doctor, George Blackburn from Harvard Medical School, was also there, getting his Ph.D. in nutrition and metabolism at the department. This paper by Blackburn and his colleagues at Harvard, documenting the power of the protein-sparing modified fast, is probably the most important paper published in the field of obesity, and it was published in the New England Journal of Medicine almost 40 years ago, in 1977. I'll read you the abstract. 4 adolescents or young adults with the Prader-Willi syndrome, which is hypotonia, mental retardation, hypogonadism, and obesity, received a protein-sparing modified fast consisting of 1.5 grams of meat protein per kilogram of ideal body weight and meeting vitamin, mineral, and fluid requirements. Evaluation of nitrogen and energy metabolism revealed the development of ketosis and a positive nitrogen balance. Serial whole body potassium measurements in 2 patients confirmed preservation of lean tissue despite continuing loss of weight. Clinical diabetes mellitus in 2 subjects was rapidly ameliorated by the regimen. Short-term weight loss greater than 18 kilograms, that's more than 3 stone, occurred in 3 of the 4 subjects, and reduced weight persisted during observation periods of 26 to 44 months. This degree of outpatient diet adherence by mentally deficient subjects who did not normally experience satiety suggests that hunger is eliminated or at least reduced by protein-sparing modified fasting. Blackburn and his colleagues had developed a safe and effective way of dealing with morbid obesity in 1976. This was huge from a public health point of view. I believe it was right up there with the discovery of penicillin. If there was a pill that had worked this well, it would have been hailed as a miracle treatment. We would have had much less obesity, a small fraction of the diabetes that we have today. I think this work was worthy of a Nobel Prize. So what happened to the protein-sparing modified fast? It was ambushed by greed and stupidity. Not, of course, by the investigators themselves, but by a group of so-called health food providers who exploited the idea and in doing so created a long-lasting nightmare. Shortly after Blackburn's work was presented to the medical community, a book was published promoting a diabolical product. Although it was not legal to make unsupported health claims on a product label, you can say anything you wish in a book. And so it was that the Last Chance diet book was inflicted on the public, promoting a product they called the liquid protein diet. What was wrong with those old liquid protein diets? Ostensibly inspired by the protein-sparing modified fast, many people used a liquid protein diet drink to help them lose weight fast. And many of them did indeed lose weight very fast. Many of them also died of heart attacks. Eventually, it was discovered that the heart attacks were caused by the lack of vitamins and minerals in the diet drink. When the liquid protein diet drink was analyzed chemically, it was found to be deficient in calcium, magnesium, iron, zinc, copper, sodium, potassium, and virtually every other nutrient you can think of. Liquid protein diets were simply mixtures of hydrolyzed collagen, which is an incomplete protein, and cherry syrup. Collagen is a very low-quality protein because it doesn't consist of all the amino acids that humans require in the diet to sustain life. There were no amino acids in the cherry syrup either. People using these diets literally starved to death. Liquid protein diets were called very low-calorie diets. They should have been called very, very low-nutrient diets. It never had anything at all to do with calories. But in the faulty logic of the day, which unfortunately still persists, all very low-calorie diets must be dangerous. Nothing could be further from the reality. Imagine for a minute what might have happened if, following Fleming's description of penicillin, some greedy entrepreneur had started promoting a miracle cure using some random fungus scraped from underneath his bathtub. There would have been a dramatic wave of deaths as a direct result of this cure, and there would almost certainly have been a huge, entirely understandable public health scandal. It would also have probably halted the development of antibiotics in its tracks, and many illnesses, which are today a minor annoyance, would still be the death sentences they were a century ago. But this parallels the lasting legacy of that liquid protein catastrophe, because 4 decades later, people remember the ridiculous, and few people understand how great the protein-sparing modified fast concept really is. Many people have suffered unnecessarily from a mistaken idea about very low-calorie diets. In fact, modern nutritionally complete very low-calorie diets are extremely safe and extremely effective. There's an important message that we're going to come back to a couple of times in this talk, and nutrition is extremely important to health. If you compromise the intake of essential nutrients, you compromise health. And when nutritionists advise their patients to just eat less, it's important to think about eat less of what? Stopping the diet much too early turns out to be an enduring legacy from bus developers. A company in California was making very large amounts of money selling fraudulent bus developers through the mail. The postal authorities were fighting them hard, but when the owners of the Mark Eden Company provided the financial backing for the launch of the Cambridge Very Low Calorie Diet as a mail-order product, the postal authorities said no. Eventually, since the diet really worked and was not a fraud, the postal authorities still hesitated because they had no information about safety. It was, however, well known that there was no risk from at least a month of total fasting. So therefore, it was finally agreed to let them sell their diet if they interrupted the dieting every 4 weeks for what they called an add-a-meal week. This was a big mistake. It's a bad idea to interrupt the diet. And since it was a bad idea, it stuck. At around the same time, a hospital-based very low-calorie diet program called OptiFast was introduced. It was extremely expensive because it included costs for the hospital itself, plus money for doctors, dietitians, pathologists, psychologists, nurses, exercise physiologists, and general staff. So in the interest of cost control, the program was limited to 12 weeks of dieting, and then the patients were referred to dietitians for behavior modification. This was another bad mistake. Behavior modification has never really been successful for either weight loss or maintenance, and is often harmful because it only stresses eating less, thus often causing nutritional deficiencies. And again, interrupting the diet was a bad idea, and since it was a bad idea, it also stuck. There is no medical, metabolic, or in fact any scientific justification for limiting nutrient-complete, very low-calorie diet usage to 12 weeks. There are, however, many reasons for the diet to be uninterrupted until weight loss goals are reached. Continuous and strict, very low-calorie diet usage, and that means nothing added, is beneficial and often necessary for managing medical comorbidities, dieting success, and long-term weight maintenance. It's well documented to be the safest and most effective method for very low-calorie dieting. So another important message is that if you're succeeding with your diet, it's important to continue it as long as you can. An evil thing to say to me. I've lost weight on a very low-calorie diet. This was my weight loss graph. I went from 161 kilograms, which is about 26 stone, to below 90 kilograms, which is about 14 stone. I kept it off for about 10 years. I can't wait for you to put it all back on. It was said to me that by the scientists promoting fenfluramine at an obesity conference. Many of you probably remember that Servier's weight loss drug that was banned, fenfluramine, is said to have caused over 2,000 deaths. So there's another important message. Whatever your motivation, whether you're attempting to be helpful or malicious, please be careful what you say to people who are trying to cope with their weight. It can really hurt. Got a slide missing. Just eat less, or so the saying goes. I doubt there's anyone in the room who doesn't accept that this is necessary for substantial weight loss. But as the historian Daniel Boorstin observed, the greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance. It's the illusion of knowledge. About 2.1 billion people, or almost a third of the world's population, were obese or overweight last year, which was estimated by researchers after examining data from 183 countries. I guess they're all unaware of what they need to do and are simply waiting for us to tell them to just eat less. It's recommended that overweight and obese individuals target reducing their body weight by a minimum of 5 to 10% and maintain at least this magnitude of weight loss long term. This amount of weight loss has been shown to be associated with improvements in risk factors and a reduced likelihood of chronic diseases, including coronary heart disease, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, and hyperlipidemia. We've seen a consistent pattern in our weight loss studies that when patients lose 5% to 10% of their body weight, they lower blood pressure, they reduce LDL cholesterol, the bad stuff, they improve glucose tolerance, and in general lower the risk for cardiovascular disease. But then in May, weight loss, the NHS backs Lose a Little, Keep It Off plans by James Gallagher, the health and science reporter for BBC News. New weight loss guidelines for the NHS in England will advise people to lose a little and keep it off for life. The National Institute for Health and Care Excellence, NICE, wants doctors to send overweight people to slimming classes with the aim of a 3% weight loss. This is so unbelievable that I will say it again. the NHS is considering recommending that doctors send obese patients to slimming clubs to achieve a 3% weight loss. 3% weight loss for 127 kilogram, which is a 20-stone patient, is 3.8 kilograms. 5%, which is the minimum threshold for any medical benefit from the weight loss, is still only 6.35 kilograms, which is a stone. A 5'7" tall patient who weighs 127 kilograms has a BMI of 44, which is morbidly obese. After losing 3%, the weight reduces to 123.2 kilograms, which brings the BMI way down to 43. Still morbidly obese. At 10% loss of initial weight, this patient is at least no longer morbidly obese. This is a diabetic foot. It's not likely to heal. I apologize if I'm alarming you, but this foot will probably have to be amputated. The medical need for weight loss is different from the realm of slimming clubs. We need to be serious about really helping fat people. Medically promoting a loss goal of 3% of initial weight by doctors, in my opinion, is medically inappropriate. Diabetes is the 5th most common cause of death in the world. People with diabetes account for an estimated 15 to 16% of deaths occurring in England. Life expectancy is reduced on average by up to 10 years in people with type 2 diabetes. There are more than 70 major amputations a week carried out on type 2 diabetes patients in England. And it's thought that 80% of those amputations are potentially preventable. Somebody was asking previously about pharmacy. Pharmacy has been effective in providing weight loss services. They have easy access. They have 1.6 million customer visits a day in the UK. From our pharmacy audits, 40% of the patients using Lipotrim under pharmacy care had initial BMI over 35, which is super obese. 15% of the patients using Lipotrim under pharmacy care had initial BMI over 40, which is morbidly obese, and the fastest growing category in the United Kingdom. Pharmacists see many very high BMI people, potentially saving the NHS over 10,000 pounds a patient if bariatric surgery isn't chosen. They're doing important work in educating and preventing the BMI plus patients of tomorrow by getting substantial weight loss now. And they're also treating large numbers of BMI 25 to 30 patients who will not become obese and suffer the myriad medical consequences associated with their weight. Pharmacist Brendan Feeney's group has treated almost 2,000 patients over BMI 40 who have lost more than 5% of their initial weight. And half of these people were heavier than BMI 43 when they entered the program. Weight loss can help treat medical conditions, many of them deadly, relieving, preventing, or even curing the problems. And that includes diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, stroke, cancer, joint disease, infertility, and so on. Many of the costly diseases have a big weight component. Surgery in hospitals would be half empty if everyone was normal weight. It's time to turn off the tap with weight loss, intervention, and education through pharmacy. And why obesity comorbidity is medicalized instantly, for example, straight-on meds for bad back or metformin for diabetes. Why not say go to the pharmacy and you're likely to lose weight, which can help with your problem? Pharmacists are effective partners in the obesity battle, and they can prove it. There are over 2,000 pharmacies offering the Lipotrim weight management service in the UK and Ireland. All keep weekly records of the weight loss and medical condition of the patients dieting in their care. Some pharmacies keep the records on the Lipotrim patient tracker system, talking about IT in the last session, which permits almost instantaneous audits of their results. The next 7 slides are posters illustrating results from pharmacies treating varying numbers of their patients, but all achieving important healthcare results for the patients in their local community. The first thing to notice about these results is the weight loss graph. With a very low-calorie diet like Lipotrim used strictly and for a sufficient time, the weight loss will be continuous and predictably virtually linear. This is typical. The second thing to notice is the success being achieved in pharmacies, with generally no need for NHS involvement. It's true in small pharmacy programs, and we'll see in large weight management programs as well. These are results from an audit at New Park Pharmacy in London. These are results from Windmill Pharmacy in Denton, Manchester. Notice that following the weight loss, the weight has continued to be maintained. I'll have much more to say about maintenance a little later. Also, the patient illustrated no longer is taking diabetic medication. This is also typical. And 4 of the patients are no longer on blood pressure tablets. Like the audit from Oakwood Pharmacy in Batley, West Yorkshire illustrates. Many of the formerly obese patients are now at a normal weight, below BMI 25. The audit from Murray's Pharmacy in Barrow and Furness, Cumbria, demonstrates a successful loss of patients' weight totaling 7 tons. This is a terrific achievement. This pharmacy had patients who on average lost 36% of their initial weight. This is really helping people, not tinkering with the problem. I hope doctors and NICE are paying attention. The next 2 pharmacies have had more than 1,000 patients who have lost more than 5% each of their 1,000 patients who have lost 5% of their initial weight. Their results are a cause for celebration. This one is from Prestwich in Manchester. The 1,000 patients lost more than 1,559 stones of weight from this pharmacy. Waste away. Gareth Evans is the pharmacist. He's here at this meeting. This patient lost 8 stone. His patients have lost 3,345.5 stones. He's got 33 obese patients that are now maintaining in a normal weight range. This is important health care. Lastly, an audit from a group of pharmacies in Ireland, managed by pharmacist Brendan Feeney, who's also here today, with over 13,000 patients who lost more than 5% of their initial weight, and close to 1,000 patients who lost over 20% of their weight. As I said before, there are currently over 2,000 pharmacies in the UK and Ireland offering this service. So the message here is that pharmacies are succeeding. They're not bankrupting the health service. They're providing an extremely effective weight management program that's extremely safe. They're documenting their results. They need encouragement and recognition from all of us. Now, in the time remaining, I want to discuss weight maintenance, a comparison of the Lipotrim pharmacy programs with bariatric surgery, and enlist your help in getting the message much further across to people who need to hear it. First of all, 5 a day. One of the more prominent solutions being debated in the media is how many daily portions of fruit and vegetables are needed in order to cause weight loss. I hope all of you recognize that fruit and vegetables are not the same thing and shouldn't be considered interchangeable. Even so, a recent article in a highly respected journal concluded that studies to date do not support the proposition that recommendations to increase fruit and vegetable intake or the home delivery or provision of fruit and vegetables will cause weight loss. Unfortunately, currently, there are no truly effective and safe weight loss drugs available for medical professionals to offer obese people. But when any future developments become available, the pharmacist will have a dispensing or even a prescribing role. Until these drugs are available, the most promising medical treatment for obesity, especially at levels that are promoting serious comorbidities, is being promoted as surgical. NICE has recommended offering weight loss surgery for obesity, and especially to type 2 diabetics. It's argued that surgery is extremely effective in causing large amounts of weight loss, and the surgery will result in remission of the diabetes. In July this year, NHS Choices reported that it could actually be the case that increasing access to bariatric surgery will save the NHS money in the long term if this helps combat the obesity epidemic. Now, it isn't clear to me where enough surgeons could come from to treat the 850,000 or more people that qualify for the surgery, or where enough money could be found, or what to do with the remaining 800,000 plus people who still need help. And who will provide the long-term care and at what cost? This could be a time bomb for the NHS. Even more problematic was a recent paper in the Journal of the American Medical Association dealing with the claim that surgery is cost-effective. The researchers concluded from actual costs to insurance providers that bariatric surgery does not reduce overall health care costs in the long term. And also, there's no evidence that any one type of surgery is more likely to reduce long-term health care costs than any other. Dealing with the claim that surgery will provide complete remission from diabetes. It's even more disturbing because there's a growing body of evidence that bariatric surgery is not always effective in promoting remission of type 2 diabetes. An article in the British Journal of Surgery studied a large number of surgical procedures and found that in 209 patients, these are the surgeons leaving, in 209 patients with type 2 diabetes, only 34% had complete remission. However, worse than that, of the 72 who did manage to get remission, 65 of them needed the most severe gastric bypass surgery to get the remission. The rest, especially gastric banding, was mostly ineffective. Dealing with the claim that surgery offers permanent weight loss. An argument for surgery over other procedures is the supposed permanence of the weight loss. This unfortunately ignores the remarkably high percentage of surgeries that need a second surgical procedure. Results of long-term follow-up studies, such as that by Christo et al., who studied weight gain in patients followed longer than 10 years, found that the failure rate when all patients are followed for at least 10 years was 20.4% for morbidly obese patients and 34.9% for super obese. And even more recently, bariatric mortality for the average patient is low but varies greatly across subgroups. Interpret that if you will. The incidence of major complications after surgery also varies widely, and emerging data show that some procedures are associated with a greater risk of substance misuse disorders, suicide, and nutritional deficiencies. What are we trying to inflict on people and on the health service? Pharmacy has an advantage. Almost 30 years when Lipotrim was introduced, it was exclusively available to GPs and hospital consultants. But after 13 years, the doctors recommended extending the program to their healthcare colleagues, the pharmacists. Pharmacy has much in its favor as the primary provider of weight loss services. Pharmacies are available with relatively easy access for most people, both in availability of hours and locations. The costs to the health service for the provision of the service are close to nil. Perhaps a brief telephone conversation with a GP to explain why the diabetic patient about to embark on a weight loss program should have the GP's permission to suspend oral medications, since with diet compliance, the blood sugar will usually normalize in a few days. For some ridiculous reason, this is proven much more difficult than it should be. If the patient doesn't benefit, there'll be no harm in reinstating the drugs a couple of weeks later. Even more importantly, the pharmacy is available long after the patient has lost weight to assist with the usually formidable task of coping with weight maintenance. This is not generally possible in a medical practice. For this, pharmacies are proving extremely successful. In this win-win scenario, the patient benefits with a successful weight loss experience at a cost that is usually less than the cost of the food it's replacing. You must remember that eating sufficient food to become and stay obese is not inexpensive. The patient is secure in the understanding that monitoring is by members of the healthcare team. The pharmacist benefits by providing an absolutely essential public health service for which he's being compensated without depending upon the NHS for funding, and usually secures a loyal and satisfied customer. The NHS benefits from being able to invest its considerable savings into other desperately needed activities. Pharmacy is by far the gold standard. Weight regain after dieting can result from a variety of causes. The simplest of these is also the most common. The physiological principle here is that early weight losses are almost entirely due to utilization of sugar and glycogen. These carbohydrate fuels with their associated bound water are regained quickly after restoration of normal eating. There's only a minimal actual change in fat storage. Only small amounts of fat weight are actually lost, even when there may be a reasonable amount of weight loss due to depletion of the stored glycogen and its release of its associated water. The lack of attention to an appropriate structured refeeding can lead to carbo loading in a manner similar to the effects sought by endurance athletes. The consequence to a dieter, however, is an excessive repletion of glycogen with a substantial rebound hydration. This can often produce weight regain in excess of the weight loss and can be a common feature after calorie and especially carbohydrate restriction. With a correct refeeding strategy, weight maintenance is much more assured. Carbo loading requires depletion of glycogen followed by an intake of high glycemic index carbohydrate foods. Athletes often consume pasta, but fruit, bread, cereals, and so on are just as effective. The result is a rapid overload of stored glycogen, often more than twice the pre-depletion levels. When the additional glycogen becomes bound to water for storage, considerable weight gain can be achieved. This is not a problem for an endurance athlete who will soon utilize the extra glycogen, but can be a considerable blow to a dieter who has just sustained prolonged food restriction in an attempt to lose weight. Weight recidivism, when substantial weight loss has been achieved, can represent a more fundamental physiological problem. It's becoming increasingly accepted that food can become a substance of abuse, and it shares the pathways common to addictions associated with tobacco, alcohol, and drugs. It's an extremely rare occurrence when addicts are able to slowly wean themselves from an abused substance. But stopping the substance of abuse is the most effective strategy for almost all addictions. But there are serious consequences associated with a stoppage of food intake. In cases where the weight problem has become substantial enough that addictive mechanisms are likely, a case can be made that very low-calorie formula diets are the only weight loss method with any real chance of success. With a nutrient-complete formula replacing all traditional foods, there's interference with the addictive processes, and the dieter has a greatly improved chance for successful weight maintenance. Evidence that very low-calorie diets confer better long-term maintenance than traditional hypoenergetic balanced diets has been repeatedly published. A particularly careful assessment was published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition in 2001 by James Anderson and his co-workers. The report, The Long-Term Weight Loss Maintenance, a meta-analysis of U.S. studies, compared 5-year post-diet maintenance from published structured weight loss programs. As can be seen from the 29 published studies, there was considerably more weight lost by the very low-calorie dieters initially. And after 5 years, the very low-calorie diet subjects still sustained a greater weight loss than the initial loss from the hypocaloric balanced diet 5 years earlier. Maintenance of the weight loss is particularly important when treating a patient with type 2 diabetes. With a combination of rapid weight loss and a reliable maintenance opportunity, very low-calorie diets are a vitally important option for the management of diabetes. GPs already know the extent of the problem. Diabetes in particular, fueled by an epidemic of overweight and obesity, is undermining the nation's health. But it's been shown that with the aid of a very low-calorie formula diet, rapid weight loss leads to rapid remission of type 2 diabetes. Remember, this was shown by Blackburn and his colleagues way back in 1976 and 77 with the protein-sparing modified fast. A 1-year study with Lipotrim against intensive dietetics showed that the body mass index of obese diabetic patients was reduced by 5 BMI units, and that Lipotrim patients were able to discontinue insulin and oral hypoglycemic agents for the whole year. But this was only true of the Lipotrim group. A 5-year follow-up study confirmed that the VLCD treatment was safe and effective in overweight diabetic subjects, and it was shown that normalization of both beta cell function and hepatic insulin sensitivity in the type 2 diabetes was achieved by VLCD dietary energy restriction. Nutritionally complete, very low-calorie diets and bariatric surgery are demonstrably the most effective weight loss methods for diabetic patients. Ultimately, it's the loss of the excess weight that leads to the long-term improvement in insulin sensitivity and blood sugar control. With both nutrient-complete VLCD and surgery, there's an immediate, substantial reduction in the oral consumption of either carbohydrates or substances that can be readily converted to carbohydrates. And as a result, the metabolic response is quite rapid. Circulating glucose and mobilized glycogen stores are rapidly utilized and generally depleted within about 3 to 4 days, reducing the blood glucose to normal levels. The reduction is so dramatic that hypoglycemic agents must be withdrawn prior to the start of a VLCD program. Rapid weight loss with reasonable long-term weight management can put diabetes into long-term remission. At one time, slow weight loss was really necessary because it is impossible to get adequate nutrient intakes from any combination of normal foods below 1,200 calories a day. It just can't be done. We have seen what can happen to health when nutrition is ignored in the interest of weight loss. When a nutrient-complete, very low-calorie diet, however, the calorie level is no longer an issue, and the nutrient balance is actually healthier than that from the vast majority of self-selected normal eating. We've seen that weight maintenance is not better with slow weight loss. The opposite is actually true. And the medical benefits are much more certain with rapid weight loss. There's no longer any real reason for perpetuating the myth that you need less than 2 pounds a week. Unless, of course, you're trying to promote a weight loss method that it can't achieve anything else. Proper follow-on maintenance can help assure considerably longer remission of the diabetes. Successful weight maintenance helps preserve the medical benefits associated with the weight loss, and importantly, an improved quality of life. So if you agree with me that the successful weight management of seriously overweight people in pharmacies, and of course VLCD are only part of the solution which is being provided in pharmacies. They do a wide range of services. But that it should be more widely known. Please join me in spreading the information. If you're connected to a social network, let your friends know about it. If you're in a position of influence in the healthcare field, please invest a bit of that influence in the correct places. Isn't it high time that the availability of help for people whose health, the quality of life, and perhaps even continuation of life itself is recognized? And you can help assure that many more people become aware that the help exists. Thank you very much for your attention.